Welcome to another episode of Let's Ask Paul, the podcast where I, Paul Abernathy, attempt to answer all of your pressing electrical code-related questions, course secrets of life. If you want to send those, I'll take a stab at it. Welcome to the podcast. Remember, you can listen to our podcast on all your favorite listening platforms. iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Anywhere that you listen to your podcasts, Spotify is probably one of my favorite, and I connect it up with my Bluetooth device, and I listen when I'm in the shower or something like that. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't know, it's probably my number one thing. I'm not big a video guy. I don't watch a lot of videos, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and I usually save them. I listen to website design podcasts, search engine optimization podcasts. I know that sounds pretty boring. Just things like that. That's the kind of stuff I listen to. Entrepreneurial type of podcasts. I'm always looking for ideas. I happen to listen to a lot of those side hustle. It's called side hustle podcasts. Where you learn little things. I'm always wanting to see what other people are doing and that type of thing. So that's the things I listen to. I'm glad y'all listen to electrical, but sometimes we talk more than just code, so check them out. There's a lot of episodes available. If you have our app, which is free, you can go over to our website and download it, or you can go to necchat.com. That's necchat.com, and you can download our app, and you can listen to all our podcasts from there as well. And there's hundreds of them on all different types of topics. In fact, there's a lot of those Electrician Lives that me and Jay did there a couple years there's worth of podcasts you can listen to. They're pretty good. Some of them are more visual, so you got to kind of have the visual thing. And those are also available over on electricianlive.com, by the way. But I'm just a podcast guy, so I like podcasts. They're my favorite. I don't know why. It's like going back old school, right? So radio, and then everything became video. What's that old thing on MTV that when it first came out, many of you won't even remember this, video killed the radio star or something like that. It's like radio died when video started, but I don't know. It's kind of come full circle now. I just love podcasting. I love listening to podcasts, whether you're in a car, I just connect to my phone. But that's the neat thing about the app, because you can send it to your car, speakers, anything. So again, I don't know. There's so many shows you can listen to in a podcast. I just get, on a job site, plug them in your earphones and earbuds or whatever. It's just pretty cool. All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Let's Ask Paul, the podcast where you can send questions into me. Now, when you want to do that, all you got to do is go over to our portal website, and that is paulabernathy.com. And that is fully sponsored by Electrical Code Academy Incorporated. And it allows you to be able to send in your electrical questions, and I will do my best to try to answer those. It's kind of like your question of the day type of thing, where you can send them in, and I either answer via email, or if selected, it'll be used in an upcoming podcast. All right. So today's episode, we'll cover a couple of these that have been sitting around waiting for me to get to. And some of them are just going to be me answering some simple questions. So again, remember, you can ask me anything. This one says, hey, Paul, I live in Washington State, and I'm in the process of getting my administrative license. Do you know of any load calculation handbooks that you are allowed to use during your exam? Thanks for your help. Well, I can't really tell you. I mean, we can go look at the guide that they usually will give you to study to tell you kind of what's going to be on your exam. But the best thing you should do, and this is pretty much open for everybody out there, depending on what state you're in, typically they're going to have a guide or something to let you know what you can expect, what the breakdown is of the exam. And so in this case, I'd recommend you contact your testing agency, whoever administers the test. If it's a PSI, then you can go right to their website, and you can download the guide, and it's a bulletin, and it'll tell you exactly what you can take into exam and what you can't. Now, on our website, if you go to our website and you go to the right where it's miscellaneous, and you click on the miscellaneous and you scroll down, you'll see, and I say our website, it's electricalcodeacademy.com. If you go to the right, or .net or .org, it doesn't matter. We own all the domains. That's my advice to anybody out there who's getting domains for your company. Always get the .com, the .net, and the .org. Those are top-level domains. Always get them. It's so cheap to keep them, but you got to get them. All right, so you go to the miscellaneous on our website. Go down, you'll see where it says state licensing. You can click on it, and it will connect you with every state. Depending on which state you're in, you just select it and from the drop down, and you can go and there's a little white link on there. It's a hyperlink, and that'll take you to the administrative page for whatever state it is. And that usually is where you can get the information about the bulletins, or at least gives you the contact information. And that's who you should really be reaching out to. A lot of people that do our courses, our Fast Tracks program, if you haven't heard of our Fast Tracks program, you're living under a rock because it's become amazingly popular. I don't think we get any negative feedback ever in our program. There's just too much there. If you aren't successful and you go through our program, it's not something wrong with us. It's something wrong with you. It's that detailed. Plus, you get to come to Wednesday nights if you need it. It's voluntary. You don't have to come. It's optional type of thing. But if you do have those pressing questions, I'm there for you. And that's what makes us different than everybody else. Everybody else. And I get it. Some people don't want to have that kind of connection with their student but I'm different. I do like to have that kind of connection. So at any rate, you can go and get that information, and the state should tell you what is allowed in that test, or what you can bring to the test, and what that type of thing. And a lot of times those bulletins will also have practice questions in it to kind of give you an idea on what you're going to encounter during exam. Now, what I tell people, and I routinely tell them this, is I personally don't know that you can take any calculation handbook in. I don't know that that's it. I mean, some states will let you take in the Uglies book, right? And some will let you maybe take in the handbook. You got, everyone's different. None of the states that I've ever tested in allowed me to do anything but the code book. So you weren't allowed to take any other document in there. But every state's different. Go to our website, go to the miscellaneous, go down. It'll say licensing requirements in your state. Click on it, and you'll be able to go to your state and do a little research. We'll give you the link to get to your state, and then you can hunt for there. Now, if you're over in our Fast Tracks forum, then we do have a list of what states are testing on what code cycle, and we try to update that. There's no guarantee it's updated, but if you go over to the Sparky Hub, then you can get access to that. It's usually pinned at the top. So just check it out. It'll tell you which states is, whatever NEC, for example, Texas is 2020, Virginia 2017. It'll tell you that information. And of course, if there's a change, a lot of times our members will mention something and we can update it, but we do try to keep an eye on it. So answering your question, I think it would be the best justice in your due diligence to go to that portal and or contact your state and ask them point blank. That way there's no surprises. I don't want to tell you something and it can change from state to state, and I don't monitor all 50 states so close. So I want to make sure you're right? I don't want to tell you something and it not be. Make sense? Okay. All right, let's see here. What do we got next? Let's see. Let me look at other questions that have been submitted. Let's see here. It says, Paul, I would like to thank you for all your material. I started watching your videos on YouTube and then signed up for the Fast Tracks program back in June. I received a 57% on my master's exam with the 1 month of studying. Oh, there you go. Only put a month in, so 4 weeks. Okay. It says, I took a long break in between. Too long, to be honest. 10 days ago, my second attempt, I scored a 74 with studying 2 weeks for hours each day. Okay, so you're really dedicated to it. They require 10 days before you can retest online. I signed up this morning once I could and passed. Thank you again. I truly believe if you put the work in, the process and the program will pay off. I took the master exam back when I was 24 as a fifth-year apprentice. I failed, so I then took the journeyman's and passed again after my second attempt. I would turn 42 next month, and as always, been in the back of my mind. Now I finally have it thanks to your program. Well, you are most welcome. Congratulations again. You know what? Sometimes it's not always about me giving. It's giving back, and to be honest with you, I love to hear success stories from students. So if you're my student out there, or you've been through our program and you've achieved some type of success, share it on our Facebook pages, share it everywhere. Email me. I love living vicariously through my students. I really do. And I consider all my students, but I also consider you all friends as well. And, I am not somebody that's not approachable. Some are not very approachable. I am most certainly approachable. I want to make sure that I stay connected at all times. So whenever we get back to doing seminars and going around the country or whatnot at some point, please make sure you make way to wherever I'm at and let me know who you are. And again, thank you for, being a part of our program. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. All right. So let's go on and look at this next code question and see if we can't knock this out. Now, bear with me. My eyesight's terrible. So let me zoom in here. It says, Paul, how many wires can you bundle together when running NM cable through stud bays, joists, and attics? Okay. So it sounds like a bundling deal, running a bunch of NM cable, non-metallic sheath cable, number one type of wiring method used in residential applications. There you go. It says, I was told by an inspector a bundle of 10 NM cables needed to be separated into 2 bundles of 5. All right, we're going to look at that in a minute, because that's just a statement by an inspector. Now, I would like to have clarification from that inspector, but we're going to break that down so we and this is not to embarrass the inspector. This is not to say, hey, I support the electrician, the individual who submitted this, but it's just something that we're going to use to break down a lesson today and learn a little bit. It says the bundle of 10, which we were talking about, 12 NMs, was secured using 12-inch long piece of NM straps wrapped around, I don't know if he means straps or NM scraps. I'm not sure what he means. Wrapped around the bundle and screwed to the framing using screws. Now, if they're straps and they're listed for use and they're okay for use with NM cable and it won't damage it, then I don't have any problem with that. But if you're just using scrap pieces of wire or sheathing, then chances are that's not going to be acceptable. Okay, so I'm going to have to assume that's what you mean, because you did call it a strap here, but I think maybe you mean scrap. And that means you just took some NM, wrapped it around the bundle, and then took it and then screwed it to the stud and acting like a strap with it. I don't know. So I can't say a whole lot about that. But what we do know is that you bundled the 10, 12 twos together. And the inspector's telling you to separate it in 2 separate 5 bundles. That's what I'm gathering. Okay. Now, he says, I was told I needed to use multi-cable straps so the cables were separated. I was also told one of the cables was twisted as it went through the stud bay, and I was not allowed to have twisted NM cable. Is there a code saying it can't be twisted? Thanks. Love the podcast. All right, my friend. Well, you made it to the podcast. So congratulations on that. You made it to the podcast. There's a lot of lessons that we can do with this question. Okay, so this is one of those questions that have different layers of the onions that we can peel back, and it's great to just chill out and listen to, right? Whether you're in the car or you're on the job site and you're saying, okay, I get it. He's got a bundle of 10 cables. The inspector told him to divide it into 2 bundles of 5, and then he's telling him to separate them So what does the code actually say? And then what about one of them being twisted? All right. Well, first of all, if you've ever installed non-metallic sheath cable, it's kind of hard to install it without being twisted. All right. Now you can lay it out neat and all this stuff and pull it off and have a spinner that spins off the cable reel spins off of and everything and be as neat as you can. I get it, but saying that it can't be twisted, interesting. You know that 14.3 is already twisted conductors in there for the most part. I know they have parallel versions, but for the most part you buy the twisted, so it's pre-twisted, so they are twisted. Right? We do know that, right? Okay. Anyway, all right, let's kind of look at this. So the first thing we would look at here is, so what the inspector is saying is that bundle of 10, the problem you have is the first thing we need to go to is 310.15C1. That's okay. If you don't have your code book, don't worry. I'm going to read it to you and I'll explain it. But this is the area in the code that has to do with the adjustment factors when you have more than 3 current carrying conductors. So we're going to go off the premise that he started out with 10 cables. And obviously there's 2 current carrying conductors per cable, right? A black and a white, right? Obviously the equipment ground is not. We all get that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read 310.15C1 because this is where we start the journey. Now ultimately we're going to do a calculation and we're going to be over in 310.15C1, the table, but we need to start that journey right here first. And here's what it says. It says more than 3 current carrying conductors. It says the ampacity of each conductor shall be reduced as shown in table 310.15C1. So that's going to get us to the table. It says where the number of current carrying conductors in a raceway or cable exceeds 3. Okay, so far we're not dealing with a raceway and our cables do not exceed 3. There's 2 current carrying conductors in each one of those cables. Okay, so we're okay so far. But then it says, or, and or is an important word here, or where single conductors or multi-conductor cables, and that's what NM is, not installed in raceways, and it's not installed in raceways, it's being pulled through the stud bays, as he's talking about here, are installed without maintaining spacing for a continuous length longer than 24 inches. Each current carrying conductor in a paralleled set of conductors shall be counted as current carrying conductors. All right? So let's think about this for a second. When you bundled all 10 of those NM cables together, and it looks neat, right? It looks like you got just a nice little tight package, a tunnel of cable, and it looks really neat. And back in the day, we used to do that a lot. You might trunk line, we'd call it. We'd run it down the attic and we'd bring all of our home runs and we'd bring them together and look all neat, right? Well, the problem is the heat can't dissipate out of it. And so the conductors that are in the cables that are deep within the bundle, they can't dissipate heat. Now, heaven forbid we dump that in thermal insulation, which is what you're going to have in an attic. Okay? You might not have it in an interior wall. But then I don't think you're going to have 10 NM cables bundled like that inside of an interior wall. I guess you could, but it sounds like it's in an attic. It sounds like it's a home run. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, now the deal here is they're not being spaced. Okay, they're touching. So you're not maintaining the spacing on here for longer than 24 inches. So they're touching. So if you can't, so anytime you have these cables touching, right, and you're not maintaining the separation, then this rule is going to apply. C1 is going to apply here. Okay, so in this case, they're all bundled, so it's a kind of a moot thing. This is going to apply. So interesting. Now let's go look at the table, 310.15C1. Now, if you look at this table, you notice what it says here. It says adjustment factors for more than 3 current carrying conductors. Number of conductors. Well, let's think about this for a second. If a normal non-metallic sheath cable, a 12-2, has 2 current carrying conductors, okay? If you're going to bundle and you're not going to maintain spacing, okay, and they're not going to have that in a bundle, this is why the inspector suggested that you separate them, okay? But we're going to get there in a second. So in this case, if I've got 10 cables with 2 in it, then what do I've got? I've got 20 current carrying conductors bundled. Well, if you look at this list here, third one down is 10 through 20. it says 50%. Think about that. So that means that conductor, whatever its ampacity may be, and of course it's non-metallic sheath cable, so it's 60 degree. That's what it says in 334.80. We're using the 60. Now, good news for us, that same code section, 334.80, permits us to use the 90 ampacity because those conductors' insulation inside of those cables are equivalent to THHN. So they're going to be rated 90 for adjustment and corrective purposes. But ultimately, you still can't exceed the value under the 60 degree column. So whatever it might be from the 90 degree ampacity, after we apply these adjustments here, as long as the resulting ampacity of that conductor is above the value of 60, or if it drops below the value of 60, then we can't exceed that value. But in any case, ultimately, we're going to be going to the 60 degree column. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so let's look at it here. So if he did 20, which is 2 per cable, and there's 10 of them bundled, the ampacity of a 12 gauge, if you go to table 310.16, and you'll notice that it's 30 amperes under the 90 degree column. Remember, we're doing adjustment and correction, and 334.80 lets me use the 90. All right, so we're going to do that. So I'm going to take that 30, and remember, it's 10 to 20, so it's 50%, so I don't even have to do the math. So that means that that 12 gauge, starting at 30, now has an ampacity of 15 amperes. Well, I couldn't use that conductor, right, on any circuit that's required to be a 20 amp branch circuit, because now it's good for 15 amps. And I would have to protect it at its ampacity. So I would have to protect it with a 15 amp overcurrent protected device. It kind of defeats the purpose, right? That's not why we're running a 12-2. Okay? All right. So, and chances are all of those circuits that are running a 12 has got loads on it that are going to need to have all the amps it can get. Because you know what? A 20 amp circuit, I can pull up to 20 amps. Right? In a dwelling, it's easy. There's no real continuous loads except for the branch circuit to a water heater. Other than that, there's not really anything that you consider as a continuous load. Now, we have different loadings on receptacles, whether it's 80% or whatever. We have those different things that we have to take into account. But we're just purely talking ampacity. I'd feel pretty gypped if I had a 20 amp circuit and I couldn't get 20 amps out of it. Right? Just for general discussion, right? So, and not to mention that if a circuit requires it to be a 20 amp with a 20 amp overcurrent protected device, and now I can't do that because it's only good for 15, and I know that I have to protect it based on Article 240, I have to protect it at its ampacity. And I can't use the next size up rule because chances are that's not going to apply here because it's supplying receptacles. So, and so 240.4 B is not going to come into play. So at the end of the day, we also remember that it says in 240.4D that we have to protect this conductor, but it also a 12 gauge is going to use a 20 amp overcurrent device. Well, here we know we can. It's got to be 15. Okay, so here's the deal. So the inspector said separate them. Just separate them. Okay, now I've got a bundle of 5 and 5. All right, so let's look from the inspector's point of view here. So if I've got 2 times 5, now I've got 10 current conductors in each set of 5. You with me? We separated the 10. We now have 2 bundles. That's what was asked. That's what the inspector told him to do. So now if we go back to 310.15C1 and we see that we've got 10, well, guess what? That's still in the 50%. So even though the inspector told him to separate it up, he didn't help the situation. It's still going to reduce that conductor's ampacity 50%. And at the end of the day, you still can't exceed the value in the 60 degree column. In this case, it was 20, right, for that 12. But I can't get 20 out of it because now it's only good for 15. So, what do? Well, you'll either have to bump up the size of your cables, the conductor sizes. You had to go up to a 10. Nobody's going to do that. So what do? Okay. So when he mentions stackers or separating them, as long as you separate your cables so that you do not have more, you with me? As long as you don't have more than 9 current carrying conductors, you're going to be okay. So what he should have said was you split that up so that each bundle doesn't have more than 9 current carrying conductors. Now, why does that work? Well, let me show you. So if I have 9 current, let's say I have a 14, let's stay with 12. Say I have a 12-3, black, red, white, and let's assume that that's a current carrying conductor for this argument's sake. And then I have 3 12-2s. Okay, we're just doing for argument, discussion's sake. We're making these things up here. So that would be 3, or if you wanted to keep it simple, 4 12-2s, 2, 4, 6, 8 current carrying conductors, whatever. I'm just trying to give you the max, 9. So anyway, let's just use 9. So I have 9 current carrying conductors. Now, if you look at 31015C1, then it says if you have 9 current carrying conductors, then you can do a 70% percentage value. Okay, well, let's do that. So if I'm doing a 12 again, and I've got 9, and I start from 30 amperes, right? And I'm going to take that times 0.70. Now I have a conductor that's good for 21 amps. Well, that's greater than the 60-degree column. It's not that I can use that 21. All we did was verify that it's still good enough to be able to put on a 20 amp overcurrent device and still be able to carry 20 amps after the adjustment or correction, in this case, adjustment. So we can't use that extra 1 amp. You're still limited to that asterisk that's there that tells you that a 12 has to be protected with the 20. It's just that we don't have to worry about it. We can do what we normally would do. We can put that 12 on a 20 amp breaker and keep on getting it. But the moment that we went over that 9, then we're screwed, right? It messes everything up. So when the inspector told him to split those up into 5s, that's not accurate. I would have said split it up so that you don't have more than 9 current carrying conductors in each bundle, and I'm going to be happy, okay? Now, if you run them on stackers and you're separating them up and they're not touching, then they're not bundled. If they're not bundled, then you got no problem, right? It's all about the bundling. It's the issue. You separate them and you got no bundle. You got no issue with that. Okay, now, getting to the last part, which is kind of funny, the twisted. There's absolutely nothing in here in the code that says you can't twist it. Trust me, the current's not going to know any better. And like I said, 14-3s, 12-3s, typically they're already plexed anyway. So whether or not a 12-2 is twisted and running through there is irrelevant. It's not going to hurt anything. And this is probably why your inspector couldn't give you a code reference, because it doesn't exist. And if somebody were to say, well, workmanship, screw that, because you can't define that. And maybe I like it twisted. Maybe I'm the twisting king. Maybe the basement king likes to twist his cables and he's the twisting king too. I don't know, right? Who knows? But at the end of the day, that's purely, design choice, whatever choice, twisting, ain't a big deal. So anyway, hopefully that answered that question for you. And and I wouldn't use strap. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a tip. Here's a tip, what I would do if anybody out there ever wants to know how to keep a bundle, as long as you don't go more than 9 current carrying conductors, how you keep a bundle in the middle of the studs so you don't have to worry about the 1 1/4, 300.4, and having to nail plate or all that kind of crap. So the easiest way that you to do this is to get tie wraps and staples and staple a tie wrap in the middle of the stud, okay? And just do the staple straight up and down, running vertical, and then put the tie wrap through it and staple the staple onto the tie wrap about midway. And then you can put your bundle right there in the middle and then tie wrap it and snip off the edge, and boom. Nothing says you can't use a tie wrap. I don't have a problem with that. Most inspectors are not going to have a problem with that, but that keeps it in the middle of the stud. As long as you're not exceeding 9 current carrying conductors, you're gravy. Okay? So a little tip for you. All right. Let's see. What else do we got? Do we got anything else for this episode? Okay, here we go. We got another one here. It says, hey, Paul, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and it made me wonder, how do you find the elliptical cross-section of a cable, specifically NMB. Also, we had an inspector tell us anytime NM is in a conduit, it then becomes a wet location, and I was telling us that it needed to be UF. Thanks for the great podcast. All right, well, great question. Again, and I hate to sound like a broken record here about this, but here is inspectors making statements. And I'm not saying all inspectors. Okay, don't get me wrong here. Don't any inspector out there get your panties in a wad. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a large portion of inspectors as well as electricians that like to quote code, but really have no idea where it comes from. It's just something that they may be regurgitating. These are the people that need to be in my Fast Tracks program because they will come out and their mind will be freaking blown. I'm telling you, because we go deep. And it's only going to make them better. Electrical inspectors, this should be a requirement to take our fast tracks, not to read some book, not to watch some DVD, not to get some questions only. And that's predominantly what people do out there. They sell you a book on Amazon with nothing but questions in there. And you think that just doing questions, you're going to get good. You might barely pass, but you're not going to truly learn the code. That's what's different with our fast tracks. You will learn the code. And I challenge anybody to say otherwise, because I've been doing this for 30 some years. I know the difference. And I am so proud of it. And I'm so proud of the students. But in this case, it behooves the inspector to actually give a code reference because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay. Or somebody here is taking it out of context. So let's kind of do each one of these. Now, the first thing you want to learn is you want to learn how to do when it comes to finding the elliptical. Now, you're obviously watched or listened to my podcast where I talked about once you get the elliptical, which is the long dimension of like a 14-2, a 12-2, or 10-2 flat non-metallic sheath cable. All right. Now, if it's round like tray cable or SC cable, then you're still going to go to the manufacturer. The manufacturer is going to tell you these dimensions on their website. So whoever you're using, go to their website, get their cut sheet. That's what we call them, their data cut sheet. Some people call it engineering specifications, but it's not really a spec. It's just a product cut sheet. Get the information from the cut sheet. That's going to give you these values. And then once you have these values, then you can apply the formulas to be able to determine, okay, well, I want to take this flat cable and now I want to act like it's actually a round conductor. And then when I put it in the Raceway, I treat it like a single conductor. And that's chapter 9, note number 9, table 1, note number 9, I believe, that says how you do it. And you're going to treat it as a single conductor. And if you have two cables inside of a Raceway, then you've got two conductors. And if you have three cables in a Raceway, then you have two or more. And so the percentage fill is still the same in chapter 9, table 1. It's just you're kind of converting the cable, the flat cable with the elliptical, you're converting it into a single conductor, a round conductor. So you're going to use the formula, okay, to do that. And I could give you the formula here, but again, go watch that video. And we also, over on our blogs, we have a blog on this as well. So go check that out. Over on our website, you'll see the little link for blogs over under miscellaneous. Go read our blog. All right, but that's where you're going to get it. You're going to get it from the manufacturer. The next question, the inspector says that anytime you install an inland cable in a Raceway, that it's considered, or a conduit, it's considered a wet location. That is extremely false. Non-metallic sheath cable cannot be installed outdoors in a Raceway, period. Okay, because we know that the code says that in a Raceway outdoors, above ground or below ground, it's a wet location. I get it. We know non-metallic sheath cable can't be installed in a wet location. It tells us that, and the use is not permitted over in 334. So we get that. Now, if I install non-metallic sheath cable in a slab on grade, then that is also considered a wet location in that Raceway, even though it's in slab, because it's on grade. But if it was the second floor slab, third floor slab, or whatever else, or in any Raceway inside of a building, it most certainly is not a wet location. Why would you think that it all of a sudden becomes a wet location? That's kind of one of those things where you listen to that from somebody and you go, really? I mean, really? Where does it rain inside of that raceway or something? I don't get it. It's not a common sense thing. So answer your question for that inspector, it does not become Raceway. And you should know that there may be more to this that you're not sharing, and that's fair. But it may be that you're talking about an outside location, and an inspector would be absolutely correct. And you couldn't install NM out there anyway. You would have to be a UF or something like that. Okay. All right. So hopefully I answered that question for you. And again, hey, if you're out there listening to these podcasts and you're enjoying them, let us know. We love the feedback. I love getting emails from people who've listened to our podcast. Take a moment out of your day to brighten up ours. Let us know. Share it with other people. Spread the word. Be our little warriors of faith out there. Go to other forums and let them know about our podcasts. I need everybody out there helping us spread this mission of helping people. Life is too short to harbor hate. We love to help. That's what we're here about. Do I charge for my courses? Absolutely. I do have to make a living, and this is how I do it. And this is what I love to give back. You don't go do electrical work for free. You get paid for it. I like to think that I give you way more value than what you pay me in our services that we have, whether it's our annual subscription or our Fast Tracks course or whatever. I like to think that I give you more and that you learn something, and knowledge is king, and I love trying to share it. But if you have any questions, that's why we do this free. This free Let's Ask Paul. All you got to do is go to paulabernathy.com. That is paulabernathy.com, and you can submit your questions to me for free. And if selected, they'll be on a podcast. How about that? All right, folks, that's pretty much it. I want to thank you all for listening. Hope you got something out of this episode. Till next time, stay safe. God bless. And hey, get rid of the hate. Love all of you. Let me know, and thumbs up and share it with everybody. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless.